Now, secondly, we'll be talking about the subnet. So I said from the previous video, I said the VPC is divided into different components. We have the cider blocks, we have the subnets, we have the route tables, internet gateway, that's the gateways. So in this section, we're going to be talking about the subnets. Now, what are subnets? Now, subnets are what helps you to partition the VPC, that's cider blocks, into different smaller blocks of IP addresses. So subnet contains IP addresses, but what it does is that it separates, it divides them to IP address, the different groups of IP addresses for efficient networking. So now in there are two types of subnets. We have the private subnet and we have the public subnet. For the private subnet, it has no direct, there is no direct route to the internet, right? So the internet can't access the private subnet directly. It has to go through a particular gateway called the NAT gateway. That's for outbound traffic. Now for the public subnet has direct route to the internet via an internet gateway. So for example, now in a real world example, we have um we can have web servers and databases. So we have web servers and databases. So for web servers, now you can in the subnet you can assign an instance to the public subnet. Dat instance will contain your front end, dat one we call your front end, where the users can see and interact with the website. Now the private subnet can contain your back end or your database, where you normally you won't want anyone in the internet to access your database, for because you might contain private details of your customers and all that. So that's the function of a private and a public subnet. Now for example, looking at this example, maybe let's say a company has given you a particular IP address to assign to to create subnets for 4 different offices in that particular company. So now instead of assigning uh this amount of IP address, that's 256 IP addresses to a particular to or just to office one, now that's not efficient. So you can divide it into four. The subnet, you can create 4 subnets. Those 4 subnet contains is a network of IP addresses. So you divide into four. You see that each office assign 64 IP addresses to each office. So each office will have equivalent number of IP addresses, therefore making that particular network efficient. Now we have some best practices that you can use when assigning subnets. You have to use multiple subnets in different availability zones for high availability. For example, if there's a problem with this a particular availability zone, since you have assigned different subnets to different availability zones, the other can then compensate for that problem in the other availability zone. So you always good to use a private and a public subnet to separate your front end, that's what your users interact with, from your back end, what you don't want your users to interact with.